Podcasts. Why'd it have to be podcasts?
This podcast belongs in a museum!
Da 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 da. Hey, it's part 2 of our Indiana Jones Freakacast with me, Andrew Felson.
Indiana Jones!
And that's a very happy Matthew Puetz.
Yeah, apparently for some reason I decided to put metal music into Indiana Jones.
I'm sure if we looked hard enough, we would find a metal version of that theme. I bet you it's there.
Oh yeah, it's there. I don't know. It came to me right away, so whatever. That's awesome.
So, where we last left our hero, he was about to embark on an epic quest.
Yes, but we never told you what that quest was.
No. But honestly, before we do that, I know we said we'd dive right in, but gotta get to the good stuff first, which is songstowearpantsto.com for the epic theme song,
Songstowearpantsto.com
afelson1.wordpress.com for us.
afelson1.wordpress.com
I hope you're not going to sing for every of these websites.
Oh, come on, they're jingles. It's perfect.
We are on Stitcher, iTunes, Facebook under both the Freakacast and Freaka Entertainment.
Yep.
And really, that's all I want to plug for... Oh, no. There's a series I do want to plug on YouTube. It's called Game Grumps. However, if you're below a certain age, don't watch because they curse quite a bit. It's essentially two guys who are very funny in their own right when they have their own YouTube shows. One guy is called John Tron, and he does game reviews, and is really, really funny. The other dude's called Ego Raptor, real name Aaron Hansen, and he's an animator, did a lot of things for Newgrounds, and he's also really, really funny in his own right as well. And they get together and they play video games, and they make commentary while they play, and it ends up just being comedy gold a lot of times, because they play some good games and some really awful games, and it's been really entertaining. And they have new episodes every single day. So I highly recommend that. Anything you want to plug before we settle on this trail?
Just the usual stuff. Check out Brick Shelf. Check out Modern Myth Media. BatmanOnFilm.com. Though right now with superhero movies, there's really not going to be a lot going on for your non-Batman characters. So check out Modern Myth Media. They're doing a really good job of keeping us up to date with different news. And what's really nice is, just like Batman on Film, they do it spoiler-free, so you don't have to worry about getting spoiled, but you're at least getting correct information. And honestly, in this day and age, there's so much crap on the internet you have to be careful of to either not be spoiled on or just to make sure it's correct information. Modern Myth Media does a great job of giving you correct information that's spoiler-free.
Which I like.
Yes, I do too. Because if there's a new Batman film coming out, or a new Spider-Man film, or a new X-Men film, I'm really only curious as far as who's getting cast and what do the costumes look like. That's about it.
Yeah.
So.
Because I like,
Half the time I don't even get that.
Yeah, and as I've said before, I like being surprised by certain things. So It makes no sense to me to go out and read as much as I can about it.
No, it doesn't.
That's for after.
You're from the experience of enjoying that film and those moments for the first time. So.
I was going to
say
something else.
That's the show we got to plug.
Oh, and go to Lego Cuso if you want to keep up to date on some of those projects, like the DeLorean and all the other cool things they have there.
Yes.
And
Lego Cuso, great way for fans to give input to the Lego company.
Yeah. I think I know why we haven't really seen them in stores.
Yeah, I've been kind of noticing that too.
It's because they're a European company.
Oh, is that what it is?
Yeah, that's why I've noticed, they have all the things, like when I saw, I was looking at the Minecraft one specifically.
Right.
Because that one I've been hearing has been popular enough for people to go out and collect. But when you look at, instructions available in these things, it doesn't have the American flag. Now, granted, it has the UK one, which is English, and that's fine. But it is
Right.
sort of, it makes sense because Lego's not an American company. Why
No, it's
should
based in
Lego...
Denmark.
Yeah, so, you know, foreseeably, Lego Kuso, which is... They have to be an affiliate or something of Lego because how else would they have the rights and have the logo and all that? So they've got to be
Right.
part of Lego in some capacity. The chances
Well,
are good that they're in the same place.
oh yeah. Well, and now that you mentioned it, I'm thinking about with the Kuso kind of subsidiary of Lego, as we'll call it. They're probably using that as kind of like beta testing. Let's test out these products, see how well they sell, but in a more comfort zone. And where our comfort zone is Europe, because we're a European company, based in Denmark. Let's test that out here, see how well they do. If they do really well, we'll take them overseas.
Yeah, I think that's they probably have those sets in those stores because I know
Oh, yeah.
I know you can order the sets if you're an American and have them
Okay.
shipped. So you can still buy them, but I think because we can't find them in the stores, it's because they're a European company. So I think those places that they have on the flags is probably where they're out first because those are
Right.
they don't have to ship them as far.
Yeah. Oh, no, exactly. I mean, it's just shipping costs alone. Of course, then again, at the same time, there's a lot of Lego parts, a lot of sets that are made in America. So I don't really know why that would happen that way. But
Well, probably because they're a European company, as we said, they're going to have the most immediate response from those around
oh,
them.
yeah. Well, yeah, definitely. I'm just saying as far as if it was just a simple matter of they're not making them over here because they can't make them. It's like, no, they can make them. They're just choosing not to.
This is speculation, by the way.
But
I said this is all speculation, by the way.
it is. But, it's fun to speculate, and at least it gives us something to kind of, put our minds at ease for the moment.
Yep.
So.
I don't know if I'd, would order the DeLorean set. I would probably, if they do make the Portal one, I might consider that.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Anyway.
But if they made Zelda sets, you'd buy them up in a heartbeat.
I'd buy at least one.
Oh, yeah, yeah. No, I'm not saying you'd buy necessarily all of them. You would probably want to have all of them. But you'd buy at least one.
Yeah. If I can have a Lego Link, a Lego Ganondorf,
Yeah.
Lego Zelda preferably as well, I'd be happy.
Yep.
And they did make Indiana Jones Legos.
They did. In fact, I have quite a number of them.
They also made Indiana Jones video games, which is not
They also made Indiana Jones Lego video games.
They did. I played that one. It was quite fun. Some aspects were a little annoying, but overall quite fun.
Some of the what?
I said there were a couple aspects that I found pretty annoying, but otherwise really fun.
What aspects did you find annoying?
I don't know. I mean, to me it was kind of annoying. I'm sure to others just a minor thing, but for certain characters it had, I think only actually 2 characters that I found it with had inherent fears. So so if there was a snake, of course Indiana Jones would be like, and not want to do anything, so you'd have to switch a character to do a task. So
Well, he did that in the movie, so that's completely believable.
And for Willie, if there was a bug, she would do the same. She would also go, ah! But I was only,
After the movie, so I'm good with it.
yeah, but I guess to me is I just didn't want to always have to switch out characters because I just wanted to keep going. So
Oh, yeah.
that was my only annoyance. But otherwise, it was a Lego game, and if you've ever played one of those, they're simple but very fun.
Oh, yes. Well, you say they're simple, but they've actually gotten more complex as they go on, because
Yeah, I mean,
they're kind of like Zelda in that regard, that, you have your objectives, but you have a number of, you could call them side quests, almost.
oh yeah, I mean, there's plenty of that.
And you got the puzzle aspect of it, and
Mm-hmm.
various things, so... I never got to play, what was it, the third Star Wars Lego game. They based it around the Clone Wars, but what I was excited about was the fact that they were incorporating the third-person strategy game elements, similar to Warcraft and StarCraft and Age of Empires and games like that. I was just very curious to see how they were going to work that into the already established format of, it's top-down view almost, similar to Zelda in the sense of you you have your objectives, but you've got side quests, and you also have the puzzle aspect of it. From what I understand, it was successful, but I think they kind of, not so much ran out of stuff, but decided to take a break from that and focus on other things. Speaking of which, I didn't mention this on the newscast from the previous episode, but they are making a Lego Marvel video.
I'm not surprised.
I saw a preview of it, and they said they had so much fun just coming up with ideas for Hulk. Hulk, you're going to be able to just break stuff.
Fine with me.
So, I mean, we're going to get to have a bunch of Marvel characters in Lego form in a video game. That's going to be pretty awesome.
Yeah, I mean, why not? I mean, the Lego DC one was pretty good, I think. I haven't played the second one, but makes sense to me to have it. I mean, and also it's turning to LegoCast, where if you're talking about their progression, where that one was the first one where they had speech, the Batman 2 one, and I think in the Lord of the Rings one they had speech, I believe.
Yeah, well, in fact, in Lord of the Rings, they took audio straight from the films.
I haven't played that one yet, so I can't comment on it.
I don't know if it's actually come out yet or not.
I thought it was. I mean, I've seen previews for it, so I don't know.
I've seen previews for it too, but I'm thinking maybe it's coming out a little bit later, like maybe next month or the month after.
Yeah. I'm not always that up to date with game releases. I usually get them late, hence why I'm just now getting to Skyrim.
Yeah. But even still. It will be, if it's not out yet, it will be coming out soon.
Yes. And since we're on the topic, I want to mention these. I don't want to forget to mention some of these and talk about them, because I know we want to talk about the movies a bit. So I think if I tried to talk about them now, it might derail us. Or they might derail us. So I want to talk about some of the Indiana Jones video games.
All right.
Specifically, there's a video I shared with Matt on his Facebook. I'll post it again on the Freakacast Facebook page. The Angry Video Game Nerd goes over some of the ones from his past, and he recorded it the day before the Crystal Skull came out, so he's in a fedora and leather jacket and has got a whip.
Yeah.
Because he was all amped up to see the movie.
Yeah.
And so he went over to the 3 on NES, and there's 1 on Atari.
Okay.
And I've only played 1 of those, and I own it, and it's awful. I mean, it's one of those things where there are some games where it's not that bad. This one is. It's pretty bad. It's Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. And I apparently have the unlicensed Tengen, however you pronounce the company name version, even though it's the exact same version of the game that is licensed. The only difference is the color and shape of the cartridge. In fact, I know our viewing audience can't see it, but you can. Looks like this.
Oh, cool.
So this is what an unlicensed NES cartridge looks like.
Alright, it's black.
It's black, it's got a weird thing on top, like a double press. It's got silly instructions on the back.
It's got what instructions?
Silly.
Okay.
It's got the Tengen seal of quality, even though it doesn't have the Nintendo one. And it's really, it's like when I hold this game, it's like, seal of quality. Yeah, right.
Well,
the seal of quality that no
depends
one.
On your definition of quality.
Yeah, quality of no one actually play tested this game. Quality.
Well, maybe they're just talking about structural quality. I'm sure it's structurally sound and could be used to hit somebody with.
Yeah. And it may take up to 1 attempts to smash it with a hammer before you can break it.
So, Andrew, you say it's terrible. Why is it terrible?
Oh, where to begin?
Alright, first of all, what's the format of the game?
It's a platformer.
Okay.
Which, for Indiana Jones, that makes perfect sense. I would be very upset if it was an RPG.
Yeah.
I would not want, timed battles. Although there is a time limit on the game.
Yeah, but you have that in Mario Brothers, so that's kind of at least similar.
But the weird thing, the controls are very awkward.
Okay.
It's one of those. It's on some of the levels, because the idea is you're in the mountain, and you can go on some mine carts and stuff. The problem is the levels loop. and the only way to get from place to place is through doors. But it doesn't actually let you know that. So if you weren't really paying attention and just trying to, like, if you were playing like a normal platforming game and you kept going from left to right, you would be doing that forever.
Wow.
Or if there's certain parts in the game where you can go at the top of the screen, and then you can slide down, keep going, and you think, oh, there must be something down here. You can actually come back, go to the bottom of the screen, and come back up on the top, and repeat the process. And not make any progress whatsoever.
Wow. Yeah, okay, I think that pretty much sums up the fact this is a terrible game.
You know, that, and it's just not that fun to play. I mean, some of it is amusing, like, to the point of, like, oh, when you die, like, if you sink in lava and you die, your hat stays up. It's like, oh, and that shows your lives. That's amusing. But, like, other than that...
You know, just hold that thought. If the amusing part of the game is watching yourself die, that's not right.
No, I mean, there are plenty of games where, like, the best part of this game is when I got killed and I turned it off. That game is just confusing and frustrating.
Yeah, I can see that.
So, honestly, that's the only one I've ever played. The ones that the nerd recommended, as he's called, is the ones that were made by LucasArts on the Super Nintendo, because they were made in the same style as the Star Wars games. So that one, they're tough as heck, but that's the ones he would go with. I know, and obviously the Lego one we've been talking about, I did play that all the way through and beat it, and that was pretty fun. So I would recommend, of the ones I've played, and I think I may have played maybe a level of the Super Nintendo version. It's been so long, though, I can't say. I would recommend the Lego one, though. It's fun.
Trying to think. Actually, I've never played an Indiana Jones game. Well, I played the demo of the Lego version at the store, but that's about it. So.
And one thing I do want to mention, well, there's two things. One I'll get to after the first movie review because it's going to tie into it. But there is one thing I want to mention. And this is going to tag up to something we've talked about previously. In the Beetlejuice cartoon.
Yes.
One of the episodes was Indiana Jones themed.
Really?
Yes, and instead, and of course, because it's supposed to be a parody, like, I forget exactly what happens, but Lydia is missing. Like, she's taken captive, I think, by some other monster. And so, and I think they're on, like, an island, or some jungle place. And so, Beetlejuice is like, alright, for this, I can't be Beetlejuice. I gotta be Grim Deanna Bones. And here's, like, the name is...
You know, I gotta say, that is clever.
And here,
Grim Deanna Bones, you know, I mean, obviously there's the reference, but at least it doesn't feel like they're trying to force it.
But here's also the funny part. Because, like, he, the character of Beetlejuice and that is, he's very full of himself, and he's also, a cartoon, so he's got to, and now, the famous adventurer, who is me, is get there. I will save the day because I am Grim Deanna Bones! And every single time his name is said, a giant boulder comes and flattens him. Every single time.
That is awesome.
Like the first two times he says it, he's like, oh, I really should stop saying that. And like the third time, like as he's about to say it, he's like, this is a job for, and then he whispers as quietly as he can. He goes, Grim Deanna Bones. And then he's waiting, and all of a sudden he hears and there's also music that accompanies the boulder. So it's not exactly the theme, but it's close enough to where you know exactly what they're doing. And so it still came and flattened him. And so when he and the best and the big payoff for that, like when he finally gets to her, where he's like, "Oh hi," and he's like, "Don't say it." And he's like, "What? Your name?" He's like, "Don't say my name." Like, "You're Beetlejuice." He's like, "Oh, I can't." And she's like, "Who are you supposed to be anyway?" "What? Oh, I'm Grim Deanna Bones." "Oh no!"
That's honestly. That's a testament to how much this character has impacted pop culture.
Well, of course. I mean, it is definitely steeped in pop culture, heavily so. I mean, for good reason.
Oh yeah. I'm just I'm really surprised you remember an episode.
That's the thing. That's how much that stuck with me. Is like I like Indiana Jones. I like the Beetlejuice cartoon. Combine those two things. Plus, it was funny. I'm gonna remember at
Yeah.
least. And it is weird. I remember the name of that. So, but again, I thought it was a good pun as well as a kid. So that's probably why I remembered it all these years later.
Yeah. Well, especially if you had seen Indiana Jones prior to Beetlejuice.
I did. So that's what made it better.
Yes, I didn't have that experience, so that made it would have made it probably I'm not even sure if I saw the episode. I mean, but then again, like I said before in our Tim Burton episode, I don't really remember a lot of those episodes to begin with, so.
Yeah. So anyway, that's my references and things. Let's dive right into the movie, shall we?
Yeah, sounds good.
That's why we're here, after all.
So, let's go ahead and start with Raiders.
Yes. Still my personal favorite.
All right.
It is.
No, it's oddly enough not my personal favorite.
That's fine. I mean, we all have our differences. Like, if you were going to ask my mom, it would be Last Crusade.
Yeah.
My dad is probably going to be with me on Raiders, though.
Well, I can see why a lot of people like it. It's just that the one that oddly enough for me, it's Temple of Doom, and there's various reasons that I like that one. We'll get into that when we get there.
All right, so Raiders of the Lost Ark
was oddly enough the first one you saw and the third one I saw. So right away we both came into this from different perspectives.
Yes.
So the basic premise of Raiders is it's the film starts off, and this kind of goes back to the James Bond inspiration. Each Indiana Jones film kind of has a pre-credit sequence. Even though it's not before the credits, it's, each film has something that occurs it's basically the first 10-15 minutes of the film.
Mm-hmm.
Indiana Jones has an adventure within the first 10-15 minutes of the film, and then stuff slows down.
Yes.
And you start getting into the actual story of the film. And Raiders set the tone, basically, for every adventure film after it.
Awesomely so.
It has, it's got the classic, the boulder that comes down, and Indiana's going in for the golden idol, and he gets it. And by the way, the servant guy that was with him, do you know who that is?
He played Doc Ock.
Yes.
Bringing it back.
Yes. It was a very young Alfred Molina.
Yeah. I do want to comment about that opening. It's brilliant in the fact that it's got a nice build up to get to that cool opening where they're going through the jungle. You don't actually see Harrison Ford yet. Some guys run away scared, and only one guy is brave enough to go in with him, and that's when we finally see Indy.
Yep.
And even before we see his face, the guy pulls a gun on him. He does that turn of the head, and then whoosh. Sends him running. So right away, you're like, okay, this dude is one bad mother blanker.
Yep. One bad mofo.
What you talk about? Just talk about Indiana Jones. I can dig it. Shaft.
Sam Jackson playing Indiana Jones would be interesting.
Anyway, and then the part that always creeps me out about Raiders was, with all the spiders on the dude's back. That was always...
I like to forget that part.
That part always gives me the shivers. I'll admit that. And then, of course, the great scene where he's trying to get the idol and replace it with sand. That's always a great, great scene. Again, that one scene is parodied so much. Like in UHF, where Weird Al is trying to get an idol, but instead of the thing, it's an Oscar.
I think it was just a fan film somebody made, but it was like a student film that somebody had made, and they set it up as a potential commercial, where this person, this guy, he was dressed like Indiana Jones. He had the fedora and the hat, he had the hat and the jacket and everything, and he had the sand in his hand. And what he was doing is he was trying to, like, replace this bucket of KFC with a sandbag and whisk it away so he could go eat it. But it was so cleverly done because, I mean, the cinematography was very similar, except that obviously in a temple, instead of a temple, he was in like a living room somewhere with a table. But it was really brilliantly done. He gets the idol, gets it out, except it's taken away by the French guy, and I'm drawing a blank on his name.
Belloc?
Yes, Belloc.
Who, as we'll reveal later, is really crap at his job, as Cracked pointed out.
Well, Belloc is one of those. He actually is a pretty, I don't want to say stock character, but a very notable type of character in that he kind of plays the protagonist to get his dirty work done for him.
Yes.
So, he's smart, but yeah, he's not very good at his job at the same time. Which
we'll get to near the end of that movie. Because there's a reason why I'm saying, as an archaeologist, he's not very good at his job. Yes. And so, as we learn, again, Nazis make great villains. The U.S. government comes to Indiana Jones, and they're like, we heard you're good with this stuff. We've been hearing that the Nazis are looking into religious artifacts because Hitler's kind of into the occult and supernatural. Do you know what the Ark of the Covenant is? And Indiana Jones is like, well, yeah, here's what it is, and here's what it could do. And they're like, okay, that sounds pretty bad. You should go find it first.
Find it first before they do.
Right.
And then we have dun 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 dun. Watch the map go with the plane.
Go to the bar where it's cold. Talk to Marion.
Which they parody in Robin Hood Men in Tights, when Robin is going from the Turkish lands in the Crusades back to England, where they go dun 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 dun, and they're using row 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 your boat with the little map with the dots. Which I thought was always pretty cool.
Indeed. And so he has to go to a bar where he meets a former lover of his to find an artifact to lead him to the Ark.
Yep. And the great thing about that movie is you really don't need much more information than that to be able to enjoy it.
No, because it's one part scavenger hunt, one part Rush Against Time, one part war story, because it is taking place during World War II. Or is it prior? Because I don't know. I guess it's going on.
It's technically prior. It's because it's in 1937.
Okay, so before World War II, but they know something's up. Nazis are no good.
Yeah. No, it's before World War II. This is when the Nazi Party is coming into power.
Yeah, but they know, they're no good. So they got to get to the Ark first because they know if Hitler had a weapon of ultimate destruction, he'd use it.
Yep. This is the ultimate showdown with ultimate destiny. Replaced by guys and explosions as far as the eye can see.
I'm surprised you remember that.
You have no idea, sir. That stuck in my head and never left.
Because I remember showing you that one long time ago.
It's been a while since I've seen it. It's just a really catchy song. That's about all I remember as far as the actual lyrics. I mean, I remember it starts off with Batman and Abraham Lincoln and Godzilla, and then at one point Indiana Jones comes in, so he's in there as well.
Yes.
From heaven on above, with an angel, of course, descended from on high, Chuck Norris or something like that.
Who delivered a kiss.
Spoil it. What's his face? Mr. Rogers wins.
Yes. But the next line of the song was who delivered a kick which could shatter bones into the crotch of Indiana Jones.
Indiana Jones. But you know what? If there's ever a guy who can destroy Indiana Jones, it's going to be Chuck Norris, so I'm okay with that.
Because the Nazis sure can't.
Yep.
They tried on 2 separate occasions.
And it's funny because I was about to make this connection. It's like, well, if Chuck Norris takes out Indiana Jones and Indiana Jones takes out the Nazis, therefore, by the transitive property, Chuck Norris took out the Nazis. Well, then what was the thing where, like, Chuck Norris, you know, the World War II, or Chuck Norris was born on December 6th of 1944. World War II ended the day after. Coincidence? I think not.
So Matt, it's one of those things where we really don't need to go over. If you haven't seen these movies, what are you waiting for? Go see these movies.
Go watch them. If you have seen these movies, you send them at least 4 or 5 times a piece, and you already know them.
Right, so we're really not going to bother going over each and every little plot point.
Yeah.
But I do want to say, like, Matt, what do you think for Raiders would be some high points for you, and even, or maybe some low points of the movie for you?
I think some of the high points for me, well, you know what? It's going to be really kind of hard to look at just the film, because when I think about it, it's like, well, I saw the references to the boulder before I saw the movie. And it is one of those things where it is so steeped in culture that it honestly is hard to judge it based upon just the film alone. I do think, though, that as a result of that really is a testament to how impactful those moments were to not just the audiences of the time, but how it continues to carry over. A good example would be the fight with Peter and the giant chicken from Family Guy, and how they've worked that in, like, with the airplane and the propeller. I think for me, one of the high points is that idea of the race against time. Indiana Jones having to race against the Nazis to get to the Ark of the Covenant. You established a premise that has a legitimate threat within the framework of the film. I thought the character of Indiana Jones alone was, and we're just looking at this one film being the first one that comes out and everything. The character of Indiana Jones is, because this film set the tone for that as well. The character was strong, he was witty, and he was kind of romantic. And I don't want to say the romantic of, I want to, no, not gay way. What I mean is he's romantic. He's a classic romantic hero that men want to be him and women want to be with him.
Right.
And I think, honestly, you watch TV nowadays, you don't have characters like that, and you kind of feel like, man, what happened to men? They all became pansies. Like, what happened to good guys like this that can,
So
Brian talked about this when he was playing Hal Jordan. He said, Hal Jordan is kind of like Indiana Jones in that he can throw a punch, tell a joke, and kiss a girl at the same time. That's the type of character that Indiana Jones, I don't want to say set the tone up, but reinvented for that modern audience, and still continues to be, we watch those films many years after the fact it's been made, we can still appreciate that character for those reasons.
Right. Plus, the thing is, like, he's all those traits, sure, but you're also, at the end of the day, he's like, but he's still human. He's still a dude.
Oh, yeah, that's what I'm saying, but there's that relatability. I mean, obviously, if you put him too much on a pedestal, it's harder to enjoy it. Not to say you couldn't, but it's just harder. I think for me, I'm just gonna kind of get geeky here. I really love the flying wing that the Nazis have in that one. You never actually saw it fly, but just the design alone, it's great. I mean, it really is. It kind of goes back to what they used with Captain America. They had a flying wing there. Nazis were known for having this really great flying wing design that was, drawn up, but no one ever made. And so it's great because as a filmmaker, if you're using Nazis, which is a great idea, by the way, anyway. Speaking of which, apparently, there is a movie about zombie Nazis.
Okay.
I don't know. I saw it on the shelf the other day, and I'm like, really? Because I know that zombie Nazis are really, really popular with anybody who plays Call of Duty.
And read comic books, apparently.
Yeah. So, apparently the idea of zombie Nazis was so popular that they felt to make a movie about it. But anyway, the flying wing design was just really great, and of course the fight scene you have with Indiana and the German mechanic, whose name is Pat Roach, and I'll touch on him later because he's actually been in all 3 films.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
And it's got iconic guy moments. You have the iconic opening scene we talked about. You have the iconic, it's iconic because it's been parodied or duplicated in some form or fashion. The German, the fight with the German mechanic by the plane, and he gets chopped up by the propeller. No matter how gruesome it is, it's cool because they don't. That was done well because they don't show it.
Yeah.
They just show the after. They show the before. They show the after with the blood.
And what's nice is like during, and I said, what's nice and what's fun is like during the fight you can sense it's coming. Like something with that propeller is gonna happen. It's not gonna be pretty.
And you're like, no. Part of you's like, no, don't do it. The other part's like, just do it and get it over with. Like, I know it's coming. I think one thing I'm gonna take a moment to talk about right now. It's a huge high point of all the films. But this one obviously set the tone, is the score. Now that I think about it, this is the first episode we've done where we have a John Williams score. And obviously when we get to our music episodes, because I'm sure that's going to be a couple, if not 3, 4, 5, John Williams is notably the best, if not at least in the top 2 movie score composers of modern cinema. And there's good reason for it. I own all 4 scores. I'm not actually a minority in that. There's a number of people who sit down and enjoy to listen to those scores. Without getting too technical on it, what John Williams does really great is he does themes really great. He gave us but by the time Indiana Jones came out, he had already done Close Encounters of the Third Kind, which does a very notable music, at least from the end scene. He's already done the theme for Jaws, which anybody who's never seen Jaws knows the theme.
Anybody who's never seen Jaws knows the theme.
That's what I just said.
Yeah.
I thought I said that. What else? Obviously he did Star Wars. We're going to let that one speak for itself until we get to it. And also done Superman. So already he's proved himself to be very, very competent and do very well with a John movie. You get to Indiana Jones, and he grounds it in that adventure feel. I mean, he almost scores it like the old adventure story, which is great. And he gives he does character themes really well. You have the theme for Indiana Jones. You have the theme for Marion, which was kind of a more lyrical love theme. You have the theme for the Nazis. I mean, they get a awesome bad guy score. And, you have, even the stuff that maybe, some people might just consider filler music. If you take the score away from the dialogue and the sound effects and everything, you start to hear a lot of stuff is going on there that you didn't know before.
I don't doubt it.
I think it'd be really neat if they could make it a feature, if they don't already have it on a feature on Blu-ray, so that you could watch the film without dialogue or, any sound effects, but just with the score. I think that would be a really interesting way to view the film. And I think really any movie scored by John Williams, I think, should have that option. Because it really adds something. And that's the thing. The music with a John Williams score becomes another character to the film. And it's not just there to fill the scene, like most movies do. I mean, a good example, even though I do enjoy the scores, a good example would be, say, for instance, Batman Begins or The Dark Knight. The score doesn't, if you do listen more so to the Dark Knight score, it does have a character to it, but if you're just an average filmgoer, you're not going to come out of those movies humming the theme.
No, not at all.
But I'm sure the way we started this off, Andrew, the first time you saw Indiana Jones, what happened after the film? You're walking around humming the theme.
Oh, yeah.
It's a memorable theme. It sticks with you. And so for me,
in a good way.
Do what?
In a good way as well.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and that's one of the greatest things about the Raiders, is that it gave us such a good, rich score that, there's at least 3 different themes I can knock off the top of my head, with Indiana Jones and Marion's theme, and then you've got the Nazis theme, and then you've got, the action scenes have their own type of music. The slower pace scene, like when he's at the college talking to the government guys. There's a score there. It's slower, it's more laid back, because it's a more slower, laid back scene.
Mm-hmm. John
Williams does a great job of that, and he showed us what he's made of with the first Star Wars movie. He reinforced that with Jones, but at the same time did something so different from Star Wars and different from Superman. He really made Indiana Jones thing, and I think that's, I know I'm going on and on about the music. Right? Whatever.
That's fine.
That was probably the biggest high point for me and I'll be honest, I don't really remember, granted, this was because when I first saw either Last Crusade or Temple of Doom, I was so young I wasn't really paying that much attention to anyway, except for what was going on. But as you watch it more and more, I mean, you still remember the Indiana Jones theme. You still remember, wow, it was such a great movie, and dun 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 dun.
Yeah.
Where's my whip hat? I need a hat.
What am I doing in this room? I should be outside adventuring, having fun. Do 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 do.
You're just reminding me. There's a video we need to post.
Oh yeah. That guy. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. We got to post that, because that's just. I wish I had the audio of that to put on the actual episode, but it's great. But that's what John Williams does so well, and when he brought that to Indiana Jones, that elevated that film from just being, oh, it's a cool adventure film, to, this is a really cool adventure film, and I'm going to remember this. I'm trying to think.
Well, I mean, really, it's like it brought an already great adventure film to instant classic.
Oh, yeah. Exactly. And I think that's, I mean, it's, I guess at this point, it would be, what do I have any sort of qualms with? Having seen the movie enough times to know what's going on and remember it, and even some lines at some point, I would say probably my only kind of qualm is that the ending, I don't want to say is bad or anything, it's certainly not a bad ending, but I kind of felt like, okay, he kind of won, but kind of didn't win, because he didn't get the arc from the Nazis right away. Like, he didn't get it away from him. Like, they got it, and they did what they were going to do anyway. He just kind of happened to be there so he could take it back to the U.S. government. I think it would have been a little bit better if he had gotten to it first, and then the Nazis never got a hold of it. But like I said, it's not a bad. I mean, it's certainly not a bad ending. It stands on its own. And we got to see faces melting. That was kind of cool.
Oh yeah.
I guess. I'll be honest. That still creeps me out. That's the one I have a tough time watching.
I got no problem.
Funny,
with it.
I can watch people eat snakes and bugs and stuff. I can't watch people's faces melting off very easily.
One of my, and I'm surprised you didn't mention it, one of the highlights of the movie, which is like, I think everyone is like, this is the point where everyone goes, yeah! Or it's like, of course, I would have done that. It's like when he's in the marketplace, they're being chased by the Nazi agents, and then they're in the crowd, and the dude in black shows up with the sword, and he's all impressive looking and mean, and Indiana Jones is like, shoots him.
Well, I think because that's one of those things where I saw that before. That was one of those references I saw in other movies before I saw that. So for me, it wasn't as big of a deal.
A
great example of this, tying back to another one of my favorite movies, is in Batman Forever. They kind of reference that. Right after Batman, it's in the scene at Enigma's party. Batman drops in, take care of Two-Face and his goons. And there's this one guy, he starts firing up, but he's got these blades and everything, and Batman just kicks him. He just kicks him down right away. He's like, and it's got that buildup with the swords, and just like, slam, and gets him right away. So, I unfortunately, that kind of was lost on me because, And that's one thing that we'll talk about, in many episodes when we talk about a lot of these older classic films is because they're classic films, people tend to take what they like from classic films and redo it in a slightly different way, but it's still recognizable. So that by the time you get to the classic film, it's like, oh, I've seen that before, so it doesn't stick out in your mind.
I know, but the thing is, even if you have seen that reference before, it's still awesome.
Oh yeah,
so,
it's still
like,
awesome.
And if, like,
What's even more impressive to me is the reason behind it.
Yeah, because he was sick. He's like, I can't.
Well, I mean, it was kind of sick, but it was really just, they've been shooting all day, and they worked out this great fight and everything, but they're in Tunisia. And if any of you have ever watched any behind the scenes of any of the Star Wars movies, Tunisia is hot. We're talking 140 degrees. Let me put that into perspective for you. The recommended temperature to cook meat at is 160 degrees. So if it's 140 degrees outside, you're pretty much cooking yourself.
Just about.
To the point of if you don't stay hydrated and if you don't stay cool, you will die. You will literally die of being cooked to death, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So they're out there in this incredible heat. They're shooting this film. And Harrison's just like, I don't want to do this. I'm tired. It's hot. This is miserable. Just as miserable. Can't I just shoot the guy? So they did it. He's like, yeah. I was like, holy crap. That's a great moment. We're keeping that. And it was really just because Harrison got hot, tired, and sweaty, and more or less because it's not so it's him, but they were kind of getting lazy. They were like, all right, enough's enough. Let's just do this and move on.
Yeah. Plus, as I understand, he was also battling an illness, which I don't want to go into full detail because it's.
He may have been. I don't recall that, but he may have been. I mean, but shooting in that kind of temperatures, I'm sure would make anyone sick.
Because of that, he was pretty sick. So he was basically like, look, I don't want to do this. I'm sick. Yeah. It's hot. Can I just shoot him?
In fact, the funny part is, that's kind of been Harrison Ford's, what's the word, philosophy on a lot of films. If I don't really want to do this, but I guess I will. A good example would be Star Wars.
Yeah, to a degree.
Do it?
I said to a degree, yeah. And you already mentioned the ending, but here's why Belloc is a bad archaeologist. He didn't do the research.
Nope.
If he had read a book...
If you're going to take control of some sort of a supernatural, powerful element, you need to make sure it can't backfire on you.
Yeah, do the research, do the homework. If there's a handy-dandy book that tells you what to do and not to do when handling such a device, you should probably give it a glance.
Yeah.
Because otherwise it might melt your face.
Yeah, I mean, actually, you do, now that I think about it, that is probably one thing that they should have been addressed, is, I remember, because I do remember the first time I saw this, and Indiana knows to close his eyes and tells Mary, it's like, but how did he know?
It's because he actually read the book. He did all the research.
Yes, but is that somewhere in the film? Because I'm not recalling that.
It's more implied because he knew enough about the Ark already.
Yeah.
Like when he was explaining to the guys at the college what it could do and all the powers. Yeah. He was, because he was actually a good archaeologist, he'd done enough of the preliminary research.
Yes.
What to do. And there's also, they have this article on Crack somewhere, like, stuff that was cut on deleted scenes that would have made more sense, where you'll notice that Indiana Jones never actually physically touches the Ark. Even when they are in the chamber.
Yes.
They use the stakes to hoist it up. They never physically touch it because he knows not to touch it.
Ah. That's a good point.
So there's just some aspects that they're in deleted scenes that would probably explain it a bit better as to why he knew to close his eyes. So I think that, there may have been, like, I don't remember exactly, but there may even be a line or two, like a passage of, like, though you can't behold the power of God or something along those lines. So that means don't look at it.
Yeah. I'm just realizing, I think I must have been in high school when I first saw Raiders, because I'm realizing that the first time I saw that film, and it's right after he Oh, that's something. How on earth can Indiana Jones stay on a submarine and go underwater and hold his breath for that amount of time?
Well, didn't they address that in some scene or some such? I honestly don't remember.
But anyway, after he gets off of the submarine and goes into like the German camp or whatever, or hideout.
Mm-hmm.
I remember him. He hits the guy, puts on a shirt, and what's really great is they do actually address the fact. A lot of times in films or TV shows, the hero punches out the guard and steals his clothes and it fits him perfectly. And they said, no, it's not going to fit him perfectly because it's not designed for him. So he goes to put on the shirt. He's like, oh crap, it doesn't fit.
Yeah.
Well, I do remember when the other guard walks over and he says, warum schläfst du ohne dein Hemd? Well, that means, why are you sleeping without your shirt? And so, because I could understand that, it's like, wait a minute. I was taking German at the time, which means I was in high school, so I didn't even see Raiders till I was in high school. So that kind of lets you know where I was. Frame of reference here. If I was in high school, this was, mid to late 90s, so I had seen a number of other films by that point that I'm sure, like I've said before, have either referenced it or various things, so some of it kind of gets lost on you because of that, not to say everything does. Still a great film.
Oh, yeah. So they needed a follow-up, so that brings us to Temple of Doom.
Temple of Doom, my personal favorite. And what I like about this film is it doesn't have Nazis in it. And I know that's going to sound strange because I, talk about how much great Nazis are great villains, but it's because let's talk about the premise of the film. We start off with Indiana Jones in the nightclub scene. By the way, awesome reference here. The name of the club is Club Obi-Wan. That's another thing we forgot to mention with Raiders of the Lost Ark. There's actually, in the scene when Indiana is in the Well of the Souls, they actually intentionally did this as an in-joke. They put R2-D2 and C-3PO in the hieroglyphics of the temple area there.
Yep.
And so, as another in-joke, they have a Club Obi-Wan in Temple of Doom. So we're in the club, and it starts off with this musical number, which part of the reason was, Steven Spielberg's like, I really want to direct a musical. Bam, here we go. We're starting off with a musical number. Already we can tell this is a different film, okay? And so we go through the musical number, but then we actually get to Indiana. And he's in this white dinner jacket. He's sitting there with some guys. It already starts to feel kind of like a James Bond kind of feel.
Yep, he's looking all suave and...
Yeah. And he's sitting there, they're going, kind of haggling about whatever. You're not really sure what's going on at first.
With a spinning table to add suspense.
Yes. Spinning tables always add suspense, which is great. So Indiana takes a drink and all this. One of the greatest lines is like, I think his name is not Shaolin. But whatever the guy's name is, I'm losing it off the top of my head. But he's like, or something about,
We'll take the diamond back now. He's like, for what? For the antidote. For the poison you just drank.
Yes. Thank you. I'm glad you remembered it better than I did.
Obviously, my delivery wasn't as good, but that's the lines.
That's all right. Sometimes those lines escape me, especially when I'm trying to think of them on the spot.
And then, of course, the moment that happens, all hell breaks loose and big fight in the club. No one can find the diamond now.
Yep. And then you're kind of playing, it's almost like playing hot potato with it.
And speaking of potatoes, we are introduced to Short Round.
Okay, I don't know how you link that potatoes, but okay.
Because he says, okie dokie, Dr. Jones, hang on to your potatoes.
How on earth do you remember this and I don't?
It's funny, considering this is your favorite of the films.
Well, I know, but because I don't remember a lot of the details like you do. I think you just have a better memory than I do. That's why I have to watch films 5 times before I remember stuff that you remember after seeing it once.
Yeah, I don't know the kid's, I guess, actors. I'm sure he's an adult now. Real name, but he was also in the Goonies. He was Data.
Oh, that's right, he was. I forgot about that. There is supposedly talk of making a Goonies 2 with the next generation. I don't know if that'll ever happen. But
Yeah, I heard that a couple years ago, so we've yet to see anything for it.
yeah.
I'd go. I like the first
Oh
one
yeah.
to go
Oh yeah.
again.
That'd be worth seeing. So Indiana and Willie jump out of the nightclub and land in the car where Short Round is driving, because apparently in Hong Kong, little kids can drive cars. So that works.
They're being chased. They lose the diamond, but Indy does get the antidote, so he's okay.
Yep.
And they make it to the airport.
I will say that chase scene in the streets there with the two cars is actually pretty cool, because I mean, it's pretty narrow. It's tight, but they still, even with the car realistically can't drive that fast, they still make you feel like they're going at pretty quick pace, pretty quick speed, and there's a lot of tension and action-packed scene they have there. But from there, so Indiana, Short Round, and Willie all get on the plane. Indy's like, okay, we're gonna get on this plane. I've got my friend that's gonna help me out. We're gonna get out of here, and everything's gonna be fine.
No.
Dun, dun, dun. The pilot, is really working for the enemy. And so he jumps out of the plane and takes all the parachutes. And Indiana Jones is in his moment of brilliance, uses an inflatable raft to float down, which, from what I recall, was it, maybe you can remember this better than me, because I only saw the episode maybe once. Did they prove or disprove that on Mythbusters?
It's been that's also an episode I've only seen once, a long time ago. I think they proved it, but not recommended.
Okay. Oh, I think that would so plausible would be there.
Yeah, I think the plausible was it would probably work, but you probably shouldn't bet your life on it.
Oh yeah. Well, and in that case, they kind of had to bet their life on it. It was like, well, we can either go down with the plane and definitely die, or use this raft and maybe die. So, in their defense, I'd go with the maybe versus the definitely.
Yeah. And even though I'm not overly fond of Willie, because I know you've mentioned how you were okay with it, but it's like I'm freaking a lot of people hate this movie just because it's like, oh, we can't stand Willie, we can't stand Short Round. I was like, I can handle Short Round just fine. He doesn't bother me in the least. Willie's constant screaming, that does get on my nerves a bit. So the line she said was okay, but the fact that she's screaming it kind of hurts it. Where she's like, we're not drowning, we're crashing.
Yeah, well, and she is over the top, I'm not going to lie, but, I'm okay with that, and I think, honestly, because like I said before, that's my mom. It's like, I'm used to it. It's like, you can't exactly, say, oh, I can't stand her. I mean, yes, I suppose you could, but I'm so used to it, it doesn't bother me, and I think, for me, it's not so much whether or not I could stand it or not, it's like, it felt real. Like, that aspect of it felt real, because, like, people are like, oh, it's over the top. It's like, I don't know. Have you met my mother? This is not over the top. This is actually pretty real. So, and actually, I was fine with Short Round because, like I said, I was 11 years old when I first saw this movie. So I'm seeing it through Short Round's eyes.
Yeah.
So for me, it's like, of course I love Short Rounds. Like, I could identify with him. And then we go from that, and there's this huge, slalom through the ice places, whatever, which were pretty cool. And then they get to the village.
Yes.
Where they've discovered that the sacred Shankara stones have gone missing. And there's all kinds of illness and death and famine around the village.
And worst of all, all the children have been taken.
Yes, all the children have been taken. We don't know where, we don't know why, just that the children have been taken. And so Indy gets sent off from the leader of the village to Pankot Palace. And so he goes there, and this is where your infamous dinner scene comes into play.
Yep.
You also get a lot of really hot women in belly dancing outfits, so there's that to compensate for it. And then, it starts to be almost kind of a detective aspect of it, of what's going on, and, you have sorts of things, and, from there the story takes off, and then we're introduced to the underground aspect of it with Mullah Ram, the thuggy guards, and the cult aspect of it. And that for me is what, I was already hooked in the beginning, and that's for me what I one of the reasons I really, really enjoy this film is because you have so much happening, and quite honestly, a very, very tight space. Because realistically, yes, we go from, I believe it's Hong Kong or Shanghai. It might have been Shanghai, actually. We go from that location to India, but it's really not a long distance. The other films, they're spanning multiple distances all over the globe. I mean, in this particular film, you really only have it in a short distance. And even by the time you get to the Indian village, well, they're still in India.
Yeah.
Like, between that and the rest of the film, they never leave India. In fact, I remember the first time I see this film going, and it's funny that I had this reaction because at that time I had no concept of plot or anything like that. But I remember thinking, wow, they accomplished so much in this film in a very confined space. This is really amazing to me. And that was one of the biggest things that always impressed me about the film, is they were able to tell a very compelling story.
Mm-hmm.
It definitely felt a little bit more character-driven to me because Indy was going through more, I felt. Like, Raiders of the Lost Ark, yes, it's great, it's wonderful. But in this film, I felt like they were really, like, the Indiana Jones character was having to go through more. And there was a little bit more development, at least on my end. I don't know if anybody else felt that way. If not, that's fine, but I felt he was. Which kind of makes sense because when Steven Spielberg had the idea, he's like, I want to make this basically as Indiana Jones goes to hell. And
well, considering
some what it is.
Yeah, considering some dude gets his heart ripped out.
Oh yeah.
And then put into fire.
Oh yeah. I mean, that definitely freaked me out.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely a freaky moment in the movie. I mean, it's...
Yeah.
And it's like... And the dude's like, oh num shiba, oh num shiba, oh num shiba.
Kalima! Kalima! Which really, I mean, it's just, you can't really get a much better bad guy chant, bad guy leader of a cult chant than that. So, I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah. And of course...
Then you have that really cool, you got a lot of things going on, and, the king of the palace gets, ends up being one of the slaves down there. The Shankara stones, I think, for me, worked well as a MacGuffin because, you don't really know much about them, and you're kind of skeptical of them at the same time. You're like, okay, there's these stones. Well, what's so great about these stones? Well, it's not till the end of the film where Indy, releases all the prisoners and brings the stones back, and then all of a sudden everything's fine again. They're like, oh, okay, so there really was something to him.
Well, you can tell there was something to him in the fact that, like, he describes, like, when these are, if you just sew one of them, it's a rock with some stripes on it.
Yeah.
Not all that impressive. Bring them together and they glow. So obviously there is something to them. And then when Indiana Jones starts jumping around a bit, when they're on the broken ladder and you betrayed Shiva, and he starts chanting for things, and they start going red hot.
Yep.
So there's definitely something to them. But of course, the thing we skipped over was, like, an awesome part of that movie was, like, when they do the minecart chase. That's an awesome bit.
Yes. The minecart chase was awesome. Although I have to say my personal favorite scene is probably the end scene when they're on the bridge. Just because there's some tension, and you're not really sure what Indy's going to do. He's in the middle of that bridge. He's like, okay, you got guards on both sides. What are you going to do? And he's like, I'm going to get crazy. And you're like, holy crap, he is crazy. It's like, then somehow he comes through, and you're like, all right, that was crazy. And somehow, it's like, now I know what to do if that ever happens to me.
I was like, Indy, you're a crazy kind of guy. I'm glad I'm on your side.
Yeah. And that's the other thing, too, is, like, while the first one is definitely fun and a sense of adventure, so is the second one. It does get a little bit darker. By the way, speaking of the darker aspect of it, this movie created the PG-13 rating system. Prior to this film, there was only G, PG, and R. There was no PG-13. And so, when they made the movie, the movie rating people said, okay, well, you either need to go for an R rating or to take out some stuff so that it can be PG. And Steven Spielberg's like, well, can't we have like a PG-14? I mean, this is perfectly fine for teenagers. So they created the PG-13 rating as a result of this film.
So we have that.
Do what?
And so we have that. I mean, I think the word that you used earlier really describes this one better. It's a lot of tension. Tension between the characters, tension in situations like when they're, when they're in each other, when they're in their separate rooms thinking, oh, he'll come to me, she'll come to me.
Yeah.
And they start getting ready and they're like, where is he? What's going on?
That was actually, at the time I saw it, I really didn't understand it because I'm only 11 years old.
Yeah, I would say I was probably the same thing for me, where like, as I'm watching, I'm like, what is going on?
Yeah, it's like, why is anyone going on? It's like, just put on your pajamas and go to bed.
Yeah, like, what are you guys doing? Only, with age do you realize it.
Yeah. Oh,
and then, like, immediately following that, where he pushes the statue with her,
Yeah, chest.
Yes, with her chest.
And I didn't catch that the first time I watched it. I'm like, oh, he's just pushing the statue.
And in that whole tunnel where they're in the bugs, and then the ceiling coming down, again, tension.
Oh, yeah.
So
definitely, I mean, yeah, I'd say that's a good way to describe this film. There's a lot of tension, but in a good way.
Yep.
It certainly builds the tension. It builds and builds, and it reaches a climax, and then you go to the next scene. And one thing that this film continues to do that is pretty evident in all of Lucasfilm movies, whether it's George directing or Steven or whoever, is that idea of, and I didn't realize that this was taken directly from The Hobbit, but out of the frying pan and into fire.
Yeah.
That is something they continue to do. Is they get out of one scathe, and then they get straight into another one that's almost worse. Which is pretty cool. So Andrew, maybe it's the same one you've already mentioned, but is there another part of this film or aspect of this film that you enjoy? The most?
The part that I enjoy the most, I guess for me it's because there's no like super iconic like big fight scene like how Indy was fighting with the worker, so it's a lot of going back and forth, and at one point he's under the spell.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of creepy elements to this one. So I would say to me like the most like exciting and you keep your adrenaline going for an extended period of time is like it goes from the minecart chase, and then all of a sudden, Indy is trying to slow the thing down. He's like, his feet are on fire. He's like, water, give me water. And then all of a sudden a gush of water. He's like, water, water, ah!
Yep. That's always a good part.
So that to me is like, that's a big highlight for me for that movie.
Yeah. It's like, be careful what you wish for. You kinda just got water.
How about for you?
Well, as far as, like, favorite scenes, my two big ones are the dinner scene and the very end scene on the bridge. Those two will always stick out in my mind. I think also because while I enjoy the stuff that they're in, one, they're in the cave and they're dealing with Mola Ram and all that, is very interesting. And it plays out really well and it's done really well, but for some reason it's just never stuck out of my mind. Because I just really did not like the idea of being trapped in this cage and lowered into a volcano pit.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody does. I wish I knew the guy's name, but the man who played Mola Ram did a phenomenal job. I mean, because to carry yourself like that in a film seriously, really does require a good acting ability, and I thought he did a great job. But yeah, primarily those two scenes. The end scene on the bridge, just because there is that tension element of it. And eating bugs at dinner, even though I've got this thing with spiders for some reason, I find that dinner scene awesome. Like, I will have no problem watching that. If they ever do it in 3D, I'll probably enjoy it even more. It's like monkey brains in 3D!
No, thanks.
As long as it's not 4D and we have to smell it, I think you'll be fine. But mean, that's part of the reason they go back to it is because, like you said, the tension of the build-up. And actually, now that I think about it, I think one of the reasons I enjoy that film so much is because I can go back and watch it and pick up on things I didn't pick up before.
Yeah.
So, plus, it's a little bit change of pace from Nazis as villains, so...
Yeah.
It really showed that Indy was, not just fighting Nazis, but he would tangle with other types of fiendish foes, if you will. So, I enjoy that one the most.
Well, good stuff. I don't think I have too much more to add for Temple of Doom.
It's a temple, and it is full of doom.
There is one thing.
Really, it is. Really don't need much more of an explanation than that.
I know, it's a good title.
It is. It fits it really, really well.
There is one thing I want to mention before we move on to the next movie.
Okay.
And it's one of those things where I remember the trailer for it more than I do the actual show. Because the trailer/commercial was on all 3 of the VHS tapes we have. And it was for the Young Indiana Jones series.
Oh yes, the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles. I did catch an episode way back when. I've never seen a full episode.
Yeah, I think, for me, it's I think we maybe watched one episode as, all 3 of us, my mom, dad, and myself, were, liking Indiana Jones. I think we maybe watched one episode. I don't remember it. I remember, the very beginning, and it's, old Indiana Jones talking to somebody about his past, and I couldn't really tell you much more than that.
Yeah.
So, and I don't know what the fate of the show was. I suppose we can I can look it up while we're talking.
The fate of the show is actually been a lot. I mean, it was actually a pretty successful show. From what I recall, it had about 2 or 3 seasons. Are you checking it up right now?
Yeah.
Okay.
But what always stuck with me was I always enjoyed...
Patrick Flannery.
Yeah?
As Indy. And from what I recall, it didn't have the same pace as the films. Which is probably why I didn't get interested in it. Plus, that and the fact that I don't know. I wasn't really into big Indiana Jones at the time. I mean, I enjoyed those films, but it's this is not... I think because of the pace, it didn't have that kind of sense of adventure and that sort of thing, which is fine. I mean, if they were trying to do a slightly, a TV show that was going to be toned differently, that's fine. But, if you're going to do an Indiana Jones show, the pace needs to be the same, and the tone needs to be the same, and I don't recall it being like that. Then again, between the 2 of us, we've only seen 1 episode.
Yeah, and as I said, the trailers that were a part of the movies have stuck with me far more than the show itself. I just always remembered it. It was on ABC and ran from March 4th, 1992 to July 24th, 1993. It starred...
was only 1 season?
3 seasons.
That's okay, that's what I thought.
It did star Sean Patrick Flannery and Corey Carrier.
Corey Carrier. That sounds like a comic book name.
I'm not familiar with that person. And George Hall playing an elderly version of Jones for the bookends of most episodes. Although it does say Harrison Ford bookended 1 episode.
Yeah, Harrison Ford was in 1 episode as Indy, which was pretty cool. I saw a clip of it.
And it says the show was created and exclusively produced by George Lucas. The reason why it was canceled is because it had an enormous budget. So the budget for the show was too high. It made for television films from 1994 to 1996. And in 1999, the series was re-edited into 22 television films under the title The Adventures of Young Indiana Jones.
Okay. Well, I do know that it's out on DVD right now. So if you are so inclined, you can go purchase that, I'm sure, at Amazon or Barnes & Noble or somewhere like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of... I might I might look it up on the interwebs and see what I can see. Maybe I can find an episode and just see like, okay, what's this about? Is it any
probably
good?
have it on. Most likely have it on iTunes as well. Well, actually, we'll find that out right now. By the way, check us out on iTunes. We're going to do a quick plug for ourselves now.
Ah, yes. Again? Replugging ourselves.
We don't plug ourselves enough.
We are on iTunes.
Check us out on iTunes. Leave us a review. Because it'd be nice if we had some reviews.
Yep.
Because I don't think we have any.
We have a couple. Although one is from Phil.
I don't know. I haven't looked at it in a while. We should probably do that.
Yeah, we probably should. So anyway, there's that. And then we move on to the third movie in the series.
The third movie in the saga of Indiana Jones.
Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade.
Last Crusade, yes. The first film that I saw, and consequently, as a result, the film that I knew the least about at the time. Because I'm like, who's this guy? What's going on? Why are they doing this? Oh, cool motorcycle chase.
Yeah. Boat chase.
Why are they talking a lot?
There's a lot of rats.
Yeah. His dad wouldn't like it. His dad hates rats.
Yeah. Hey, how come his dad has an accent and his son doesn't?
You know, that's a good question. Well, see, what happened, Andrew, is there was actually this time portal that came in and smacked us both upside the head for even questioning that. The person who did that, of course, was Sean Connery himself.
Well, you see, when you're a Highlander, you can kind of do whatever you want.
Exactly. Like, use the same exact accent in every role you play, including a Russian guy and a Spanish guy who's really Egyptian that no one understands anyway. But, you know, the thing is, it's Sean Connery. We give the man a pass because we just enjoy the hell out of watching him.
Yep.
And actually, Andrew, now that I think about it, this is actually pretty easily explained in the film itself. Indy talks about how his dad wasn't around a lot. Well, if your dad isn't around a lot, you're not going to pick up a lot of the speech patterns and accent. You're going to be taught to learn by other people. So most likely, as a result, you're going to pick up more of the straight American accent, being educated in American schools. As we saw at the beginning of the film, you know, Boy Scouts, which I thought was really cool to see, kind of that young Indiana Jones adventure, and the transition they did with having young Indiana Jones put the hat on, and then he lifts his head up, and it's older Indiana Jones, I thought was really cool.
Yeah.
So it starts off with just kind of I don't want to say random, because it explains how he got the hat, and it also kind of sets up animosity between him and one of the other characters at the beginning of the film, but it really is the known pre-credit sequence like we talked about before. This really doesn't tie into anything.
Nope.
Which is faithful, quite honestly, in Indiana Jones films. I think it really helps set it apart, but also makes it more like a James Bond movie, but at the same time different.
Yeah. I mean, it does do.
So we're at the Last Crusade.
Yeah, I mean, it does do the fact where it does include the fact that we were back on the Back to the Christianity theme, because like our artifact he's going for is the cross.
Yes, we're back to biblical relics.
And it is also neat that they also, like, as his young self, he acquires a whip and uses that for presumably the first time.
And not only that, but we also get an explanation as to why he has a scar on his chin, which the only reason that Indiana Jones had a scar on his chin was because Harrison Ford had a scar on his chin. That wasn't makeup. That was a legitimate scar on Harrison Ford's chin. So they were like, okay, we have to work this into the story somehow.
And then they also worked in how he got his...
The reason why Luke Skywalker got mauled by a Wampa is because Mark Hamill got into a car accident the night before shooting. They're like, crap, now we got to figure out a reason for Luke to have a messed up face.
And we also see how he presumably got his phobia of snakes.
Yes. So they did a really nice job of setting up the character right away.
Yep. So it's one of those things where it's also helpful, like, if you've never seen any of the other two, you'll know exactly what's going on.
Well,
With who his character is.
Say that each one of them. I mean, regardless of which one you watch, you're going to be able to sit down and watch and understand it.
I mean, understand it, sure, but I mean, get to, like, know the character more.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
So you've already got, you know, how he is and how his morals are right in the beginning of the film.
Yeah.
So anyway, after his successfully getting the artifact back after a long time, because, you know, when he's an adult, he finally gets that cross back, and then we never see it again because it's no longer important.
Right.
He's then contacted by some guy.
Walter Donovan.
There you go. To look for the Holy Grail.
The Holy Grail.
Go, Arthur. Seek this Grail. Oh, sorry. Channeling Monty
You will
Python.
bring us a shrubbery.
A what? A shrubbery. And put one in there so we can make a path. And then chop down the tallest tree with a herring.
A herring?
It can't be done. Ah!
Ah!
He
What?
said-
All I said was it.
Ah! He said the word that might not be said. Must not be said.
Bang!
Brazil. Neat. Good stuff.
Yes, good stuff. We're now talking, this is now the Monty Python cast.
At this point, you know,
So
the end.
Walter Donovan contracts Indy to go to look for the Holy Grail, and along the way...
But at first he's like, you know... But at first Indiana Jones is like, forget it. If you want to talk about the Grail, you got to talk to my dad. He's the expert. And he's like, we did. We lost contact with him. We figured we should go to you. He's like, that explains it then. I guess I better pack my bags.
Dun, 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 dun. And now we're in Italy. Well, actually, I take it back. We're in Italy first, where he meets up with Elsa Schneider, who is, you know, blonde-haired, blue-eyed. We'll come back to that later.
Should have seen that one coming, dude.
Yeah, I know. Well, it's Indiana Jones. He hasn't had any in a while. He's just feeling kind of stupid, apparently.
Yeah, I mean...
Not on his A game.
They did tell you not to trust anybody, but there you go, trusting somebody.
Yeah, but you're going to ignore that because you're a guy. There's a pretty girl there. So he meets up with Elsa Schneider, and then they begin to look, and Indiana Jones begins to look through the Grail diary that his dad sent him, and he starts to go through different clues, and he corrects himself from an earlier statement that X never marks the spot, and says that X marks the spot.
Solve for X.
Yes, X never marks the spot. Solve for X.
Yep. If we ever make a Freakastore, that's gonna be a shirt.
Oh yes.
I'm copying that sucker right now.
Oh yeah, there you go.
Copyright Andrew Felson, 2013. Anyway, so it's also, this is a part of this movie that always made my mom laugh, and subsequently I laugh as well, where they're in the library and he's got the it's not a podium.
Oh
the
yes,
stand.
yes, with the guy stamping the books.
Yeah, and he times it every time he stamps it.
And he doesn't even realize he's doing it, but he's like bashing the floor to get it open, and at the same time he hits the floor, the guy's stamping the books, and so this guy's like, "Holy crap! Where's the sound coming from?"
Yes.
Yeah,
and
that was always pretty.
That's such a great bit.
Yeah, it is.
And so they go underneath the city. The library.
Well, yeah.
And enter the sewer system, and it's, for some reason, full of oil.
Yeah.
which I always thought was odd.
Well, see, I didn't realize it was full of oil. I thought for some reason the water was burning. I couldn't figure that out.
Well, water doesn't normally burn.
I know. I just kind of okay, I guess the water's burning. Whatever.
The pool's on fire!
OHMYGODIMONFIRE.
It's another song I'm amazed you remember.
Like I said, you'd be surprised what's stuck in my head that I can't get out.
So they end up finding an artifact.
Yep.
Making some validity to the fact that there may in fact be a Holy Grail. Because Indiana Jones, even though he had known his father was researching it, was still kind of like, it's not real. They would have found it by now.
Yeah.
So now he's realizing, okay, there's people trying to kill me, and then they do the aforementioned boat chase, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
And he manages to get one of these guys like, why are you trying to kill me? He's like, why are you trying to go for the Grail? He's like, I'm not going for the Grail. I'm looking for my father.
Yep.
And so they realize that, okay, so the people who were protecting it eons ago are still protecting it, just handed down through the bloodlines.
Right.
And he reveals that where his father is. I don't remember exactly where it is, but they have to go to a castle.
He's in a castle. He's in a castle in Scotland. Imagine that. Sean Connery's in a castle in Scotland. Who would have thunk?
Who would have thunk?
So, and I always like this scene because you get to see Harrison Ford doing his best Scottish accent. By the way, that is literally Harrison Ford doing his best Scottish accent. Harrison Ford should never do accents, and this is a testament why.
But that makes it better.
That is the worst Scottish accent ever.
Which is why, the butler's, reaction is like, if you're Scottish, I'm Mickey Mouse.
Yeah.
He's like, how dare he? Bam!
Yeah.
Oh, it's so great.
Yep.
And then that leads up to one of your favorite scenes.
Yeah, because then, he finds his dad, and they get taken into the bottom place, and it's revealed that Elsa Schneider is a dun-dun-dun. She's not exactly who she says she is.
Yep. So she takes the Grail diary and is like, yoink, mine, suckers. Have fun rotting here. And then, of course, they proceed to burn the whole place down.
Yep. Well, then, so at that point, then it's, Indiana Jones and his dad trying to race against the Nazis to find the Holy Grail.
Yep, but first, the iconic motorcycle chase happens.
Yeah.
And once that's done with, Indiana's like, okay, Dad, where to? And he's like, I don't know. It was in my book. I wrote it down so I didn't have to remember. We gotta go get it. And he's like, what, do you expect me to just go to Germany and go to get it? He's like, yeah. He's like, all right. So in a odd twist of fate, he goes to Germany, gets the book, and gets an autograph by Hitler.
Yep. Which is, pretty funny.
Yep.
Your Holy Grail diary autographed by Hitler. I mean, how many people can say that they have one of those?
And also I forget his name, but the curator of the museum is brought into it as well as the guy who was Indiana's friend in the first movie.
Oh yes, Marcus.
Yes. Who later went on to play Gimli.
No. You're thinking of Sala.
Yeah, but I said, Indy's friend, and you said Marcus, so I thought you were talking about him.
Oh,
Sala went on to play Gimli.
The curator was Marcus. That's
Curator is Marcus.
The curator's Marcus, the friend was Sala.
Yes.
But yes, he did go on to play Gimli, and he also played in that TV show Sliders. You've seen that. That was pretty cool.
And so, eventually I'll get captured and Although they had that cool thing, bit with the tank. That was always neat.
Yeah. You know how that came about?
No?
That really had no rhyme or reason. It was more like Steven Spielberg and George Lucas are looking at each other like, we got a really big, awesome tank. We got to figure out a way to work that in the film just for the sake of having a tank in there.
It's like, you know, we
But
got...
it really, you guys, it really is one of these things where if you actually watch any of the behind the scenes of any of the Indiana Jones films, a lot of the discussion between George and Steven, it's not unlike you and me, Andrew. It's literally two guys sitting there going, wouldn't it be cool if we do this? We get this really awesome thing. Let's figure out a way to use this just because it's awesome.
Like, we got it here. Why not use it?
Exactly. It's
I mean,
like,
this is an action movie.
There's no rhyme or reason for this film to have a tank in it, but damn it, we're going to have a tank in it.
We'll make it work. Because trust me, it's an action movie. No one's going to care. Because, hey, tank.
Exactly. And for some reason, as we're thinking about things that are awesome, I have no idea why I forgot to mention this when we talked about Raiders, okay?
Yeah.
The part where Indiana Jones is, it's on the truck chase, and he's riding up alongside on the horse. He gets on the truck, and he actually gets in the front of the vehicle, but he's on the very front, like he's on the front, he slides back, and then, kind of goes through underneath the truck, and then hooks on the whip, and then it holds on for dear life back. And then goes up the whip and then gets on. I always thought that was really cool.
Yeah, just adds to the part, the persona of Indiana Jones as a macho dude that is resourceful as heck and can always find a way to persevere and prevail.
Yes, very much.
So never, ever count Indy out.
So we finally get to the location of the Holy Grail, which is in Alexandretto. Because Henry Jones, Sean Connery's character, for some reason didn't think of Alexandretto. But Indy did, so they were able to find it together. So they go there, and they get there like, okay, we found it. All right, let's go home. But they can't, because the Nazis decided to shoot Indy's dad. And at that point, he has to go get the Holy Grail in order to save his dad. And
well, plus they also...
one of the strongest endings. I think that's why a lot of people like this one a lot. It does have a strong ending of, okay, it's not about Indy trying to reclaim a relic for the sake of reclaiming a relic. It's not about Indy trying to reclaim a relic to keep it away from the Nazis. It's he has to save his dad. And so at that point, it makes it very, very personal.
Yeah, plus, at some point, I don't think it was here, but it was... the person who initially sent him on this mission also turned out to be a Nazi.
Yeah, Walter Donovan.
Yes. And so he is there, and you get... I think he may have been the one who shot him, in fact.
I think so. If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. And so Indiana Jones has to go through the trials to get to the Grail.
Yeah.
And so, really cool...
Penitent man will pass.
Yep.
You must walk in the footsteps of God.
Was
and
it...
then I forget the last one, but you have to have a leap of faith.
Leap of faith, so invisible bridge.
Yep.
And then
Which I thought that was really cool.
And then he meets the Ancient Knight.
Yes.
And I gotta admit, as much as I like this movie, it's a little out of place. I go with it because, I like the movie.
Yeah.
But it's a little out of place. But it does, I guess it does, it's like, hey, it's the Grail. This guy is God knows how old.
Yeah. No, I mean, I agree. It does kind of feel out of place, but at the same time, they do at least present it to you in a way that's, you can kind of, and honestly, I'm gonna say this. The fact that Indiana Jones was able to walk on it, he took that leap, and I think they kind of set it up because he takes that leap of faith. He steps out onto the air, not being able to see the bridge, and then it builds itself after the fact. I think at that point it's like, okay, if this is a scenario, a setting that can present this type of thing to me, I have no reason to believe that there cannot exist a almost immortal knight that's old and ancient.
Yep.
That's how it works.
And of course we get the I'm gonna steal a bit from Animaniacs now. The good idea, bad idea bit for the cups,
Yes.
where good cup, bad cup, good cup.
Yes.
What would the son of a carpenter drink from? I think that's the line.
What?
Like like that's not the cup of a carpenter.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
all these
that's the
elaborate
cup of a
things.
carpenter.
So you get that's
Yeah.
the I know that's the cup, the bad cup, and then the horrific way he dies. That part always stuck
Yep.
with me. Where he's like,
Oh, yeah. It just gets really old really fast.
and turns to dust.
Yep.
And he's able to heal his dad. And
And then they ride off into the sunset.
as they
Which
should.
is always...
Da, 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 da. And then for a long, long time, there were no more movies. So we were thought it was the Indiana Jones trilogy and nothing more. But then, in the
Alright,
distant
so-
year,
So, what's your favorite part of Last Crusade?
there's a lot of good parts, but the part we didn't mention, so I'll mention this, where it's like, ticket please, bam, out of the blimp,
Which
no ticket.
Kevin Smith very, very well parodied in Dogma. And in fact, it was actually after seeing that reference, I was like, you have me, sir. You have me. I will watch the rest of your films. So,
I mean, that's a great part. That's a great moment.
oh yeah.
How about you?
Let's see. For me, honestly, it's gonna sound kind of cheesy, but my favorite scene out of the entire thing is the motorcycle chase.
That's fine. It's a great moment. Great scenes.
It's great. It's a great scene, and just seeing Indiana Jones decide to take up that flag and use it as a lance to launch a guy off. It's like, that's just great. And the music for that scene is really great too. And it's actually probably one of my favorite, or if not my personal favorite track to listen to on that movie's score. It's got a good perpetual feel to it. It's got a good theme to it. It's just, I don't know, the music, the action, having Indy's dad react the way he does, it's just, that's a scene that really works for me. So, moment in that film I always look forward to seeing.
I also like the part where he and his dad are in the plane, and his dad's got the gun. And he accidentally shoots the tail off.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Son, they got us."
Yeah. Yep.
And then brilliantly uses birds to take down a plane.
Because I suddenly remembered my Charlemagne. My homage will be in the rocks in the north and the birds in the sky. But literally in that case.
So yes,
Always a good one.
indeed it was. Many a good ones. And then
Yep.
a long time passed, and we didn't think we'd ever see another one.
And then we got the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. So we start off with Indiana Jones has been kidnapped and taken to an undisclosed location. We're just revealed that it's some sort of government warehouse. Incidentally, we find out a little bit later in the scene, it's this exact same warehouse that they put the Ark of the Covenant,
Yep,
which I always thought was really great.
it's a good callback.
And, it sets it up really well. Filmmakers said, okay, if we're going to bring back Harrison, it's got to be Indiana Jones playing that age. It needs to be set in an appropriate time period. So we really fast forward about 20 years, We're in the 50s, and in the 50s there were communists. There were, the Russians were the biggest threat to America, So we're already breaking out of our mold by not having Nazis return, which I was fine with. I thought the idea of not using the Nazis, because I'm like, as I've said before, while Nazis make great movie villains, you don't want to beat the dead horse too much. You want to bring out something fresh and different. And so by bringing in Russians as the villains, I thought, okay, this would be great. This would be really neat.
I mean, that makes. I mean, of all the things that people complain about in this movie, that's like it makes total sense to have the people who we were most afraid of and against at that time, the villains.
Oh yeah.
So that makes perfect sense to me.
Oh yeah, I mean it does.
And it was also nice to have a female villain. Matt, you there?
Especially, I don't know. Hold on.
Oh, he's back.
There we go. I'm back. And better than ever.
We rebuilt him.
Do what?
Said we rebuilt him out of Lego.
I would expect nothing less of you, sir.
Anyway, what I was attempting to say was... what I was attempting to say was...
Yes.
It's also nice to see a female villain.
Oh, yes. Very nice to see a female villain. Kate Blanchett did a great job. She had the accent on pat. And what I liked is she looked imposing. She looked threatening. But not in a, I'm going to, do something, disastrous. But, like, I don't want to mess with her. She looks like she's going to mess me up or something.
And she has that aura of, like, don't mess with this person. She is way tougher than you could ever possibly imagine. Don't try it.
Yes, that's very true. But another thing that we kind of didn't really touch on the others is that the main bad guy always had kind of a lackey, like a number one lackey to go with him, which I always thought was really great. And in this one, you have that with the really big Russian dude. I completely forget his name, but the really big Russian dude that Indy actually fights at the end of the scene. They start fighting in the scene, then they get down to this nuclear reactor or like a test rocket thing, which I always thought was pretty cool. And part of the reason I thought it was cool is because, this takes place in the 50s. There was a lot of experimental technology. This is a government warehouse. We know they're keeping the Ark of the Covenant there. Why wouldn't they have, other experimental technology? Especially, we know that at the same time, they had the arms race, and that was a big thing. So, if anybody has an issue with that, like, to me, I totally bought it. I totally make it, it made sense to me. It's also, we get revealed that, okay, we're not dealing with a supernatural MacGuffin in this one. I know that pissed a lot of people off. Get over it, because that's what they decided to go with. They decided to go with a science fiction angle. And when I do remember seeing that, I'm thinking, okay, this is different. I'm interested to see how this plays out.
The thing is, I gotta pause you there for a second, Matt.
Okay.
And here, like, I know there's a lot of little bits and gripes of things like people like, oh, he could have never survived in that refrigerator in the atomic blast. Oh, that's so stupid. It's like, first off, there's a lot of crazy ways Indiana Jones survived in the other movies, so I'll grant you surviving on a nuclear blast in a refrigerator is pretty far out there, but not enough to ruin a movie. But let's bring it back a page. In the first three movies, all three of them had a religious, supernatural thing going. You had the Ark, right out of the Bible, but it was... So we had Wrath of God stuff. You had the Thuggee thing, so you see Shiva involved.
Starstone.
So you have people going into their heart, into their chest, ripping at a heart. They're still alive. It's still beating.
Right.
The stones catch on fire. And then back to the third movie where Christianity is, again, Holy Grail time. So in all three, there's a supernatural, biblical element to it.
Yes.
Religious thing. The moment you take that out and replace it with something else... But here's the thing, folks. You shouldn't have had complaints because you saw the title of the movie long before you saw the movie. Crystal skulls are not a new thing. That's been around for
In fact, that's actually one... let's go ahead and talk about that right now. That's actually one of the things that people got up in arms about. And it's like, first of all, they actually exist. The Ark of the Covenant is told about in the Bible. We honestly don't know where it is. The Shankara stones were completely made up, at least as far as we know. The Holy Grail, kind of the same thing as the Ark of the Covenant. The crystal skulls, they actually have crystal skulls in museums. Fully formed. It's not it's not man-made or anything. They can't explain where they came from. So right away, guess what, people? This is a little bit more, I don't want to say it's more realistic, but at least the idea of the MacGuffin is more realistic.
Yes.
And right away, it's not really science fiction. It's just, it's explained in a science fiction way because that's your fantasy element.
I think
people
that's...
in South America did actually use to wrap their children's heads around to pay homage to the gods. It's like Indy says in the film. It's like, it depends on who your gods are. And, come on, people. There's ancient aliens that talks about, whether you believe in it or not, there's at least TV shows that talk about the ancient Egyptians not really building the pyramids, but getting help from extraterrestrials. Not a new concept. For some reason, this film made people feel like it was, which I just thought was hilarious.
Yeah, we totally just gave away the ending, but it's like, who cares? But also, it's like, again,
oh, come on.
This whole, you went into an Indiana Jones expecting realism. No. From the first one, from the get-go, it was always a fantasy, sci-fi, adventure film. That was always like that.
Even if we just take a look at Raiders, there's science fiction elements there in the sense of the Ark of the Covenant. Yes, it's supernatural, but there's still, Indy at least approached it in a scientific way. He never approached it in a religious way. The same with the Shankara stones. He was still skeptical. He didn't approach it in a religious way. He approached it in a scientific way. Same with the Holy Grail, That's why that moment when he takes that leap of faith is such a powerful moment, because at that moment you've got Indiana Jones, a skeptical scientist, if nothing else, trusting his instincts, having to say, okay, I have no choice but to do this because I have to save my dad. So I kind of agree with you, Andrew. It's like going into this film, it's like, okay, seriously, you were expecting realism? Actually, it's really funny because my mom, when I saw this film, the second time, I saw it in the midnight showing with my friend Sarah.
And me.
And then I saw it again with my family. And it was funny because we walked out of the theater and my brother's like, what a great entertaining family film. That was fun. Mom's like, yeah, and it was so realistic too. And I'm like, really, Mom? Have you not seen others? Like, yeah. I was like, seriously? So later that night, we put on Raiders, and my mom's like, oh, well, this is a lot less realistic than I remembered. It's like, well, no kidding. It's Indiana Jones. It's like, and back to the refrigerator, it's lead-lined. Especially fridges at that time. What else are you going to do? Get in the fridge and hope you survive or definitely die by not getting in. What are your options at?
Well, it's not so much, I don't think, the radiation part that bothers people. It's the fact that if you were flung that high and that hard in anything, you'd be smushed.
Well, perhaps. But, once again, Andrew.
But again,
they're trying to talk actual physics in an Indiana Jones movie.
In movies, seriously? In movies in general. Movies have their own special physics.
I will be the first to admit there are some serious physics flaws in The Dark Knight or any one of the Batman films. Come on. And that's the most realistic kind of fantasy film you could have.
Yep.
It just kind of makes me laugh. It's like, some people just put too much thought into movies. This goes back to what we said before, Andrew. A movie's purpose is to entertain. And I know that some people don't like this film, and we're actually, anyway, let's finish setting up the premise of this film.
Yes.
So it does revolve around the Crystal Skull, and we're not sure what the Crystal Skulls are, what their purpose is, that sort of thing. But Mutt Williams comes to where Indy's at, back at the college, and finds him and says, he's looking for Ravenwood, Professor Ravenwood, and that, his old colleague, Dr. Oxley, has been lost in the Amazon. And so Indy basically goes on a quest to find Dr. Oxley, and along the way, him and Mutt find the Crystal Skull. And unfortunately, right after they find it, they get it stolen by the Russians.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, that's kind of where I really like it up to that point, and the only reason is because the only reason it kind of falls a little short for me after that is like, well, why isn't he there? It's like, why isn't he with the Russians? I mean, I guess I kind of understand that they need him to do it, but I think it was just not really clear what the purpose of returning the skull back to the temple was. I am openly admitting that this was a weaker film. But the ending, if we look at the ending of Raiders, the Ark of the Covenant, the power of God comes out, Indy's and Marion have their eyes shut, everyone else's faces get melted. Okay, they're going to pick it up and take it back to the government, lock it away, end of story. In Temple of Doom, one of the reasons I like that film so much is the ending. Indy returns the Shankar stones, frees all the children, restores peace and prosperity back to the village. Really can't get it much better. I mean, that's a happy ending for a film.
And he kisses the girl.
And then not only does he kiss the girl, but he takes his whip, throws it around Willie, pulls her in, and then kisses her. Which Peter Parker later does in The Amazing Spider-Man. So, Peter Parker's got some Indiana Jones in him is what I'm thinking. And then like we said with Last Crusade, Indy has to get to the Grail to save his dad. So it's clear there's a sense of urgency, there's a sense of purpose. With Crystal Skull, I kind of feel like, just from a story element, just from a simple aspect of the ending, I kind of felt like, you know what, I enjoy the film, it's fun, it's entertaining, there's really not a part I can't say I dislike. I know some people are like, oh, there's the monkeys. Really? You're gonna crap all over a movie for 2 seconds of monkeys? Give it up, whatever. They never bothered me. I was like, oh, there's monkeys. Okay, moving on.
There was a monkey in the first one.
There was a monkey in the first one, and nobody had a problem with that monkey. I don't know why people get upset with more than one monkey, but whatever.
It was a Nazi monkey.
It was a Nazi monkey?
Yeah.
I don't...
Like, it was owned by the...
That's why they didn't have a problem with the monkey in the first one, because it was a Nazi monkey.
And it got killed by the bad date.
It did, which is why you gotta be careful with bad dates. Make sure you always take your date out, treat her nicely.
And preferably do a background check.
Thank you, sir, for tagging up that joke. I don't think it could have gotten better. But I mean, and actually, I've got to say, the entire time when I first saw this film, I had a healthy amount of skepticism, because when you're first presented with a science fiction element, you're like, okay, how are they going to work this in? I was thoroughly impressed with how well they worked in the science fiction element, with the crystal skulls, with the archaeology element. I mean, it made sense. I mean, everything that was presented to me made sense within the confines of the story in the film. I was like, you know what, I don't have a problem with this. This makes sense from what I'm being told. I was like, okay, I am on board with this. The minute that Indiana Jones spouts out, I've got a bad feeling about this, me and Sarah and a couple other people in the theater, we just busted out laughing. We're like, oh my god, that's awesome. Like, that's awesome. I mean, I'm sorry. It's like, that's just awesome.
You're just like, wow, how did you convince him to say that?
Oh, no, it wasn't even that. It's like, but that was, because Harrison Ford hasn't said that since 1983. I mean, come on. I was eating that up, and to see him say that in a theater, because I wasn't born at that time.
Yeah.
Or at least it's like, that was awesome. So, I think the only thing, as far as the actual ending itself, that kind of bugged me, and maybe it's because of the in-between that we just didn't see Indy go through. And that's kind of what I'm going with right now is, we didn't see Indy through the war, because he did participate in World War II. There were other adventures that he had, and it's just his reaction to, they put the skull back on the skeleton, they kind of merge together, and the aliens go back to their dimension. It's like, if that had been presented to you prior, I probably would have been okay with it. But it's like, okay, so all this stuff happens, and Indy doesn't even seem to blink an eye or even question. Like,
he's like, oh,
even
there it
have
is.
him say in a dry, droll voice of, "Well, that was interesting."
Yeah, it's like not even like, oh, there it is, there it goes. Bye guys, don't forget to write.
Yeah.
And plus, it's like,
you would expect that from Indiana Jones, but to have him not even acknowledge it really, other than like, all right, there they go.
Plus, they missed out on a golden opportunity. I mean, Spielberg was involved, right? They could have totally done a Close Encounters of the Third Kind reference. You
Oh
know,
yeah.
they could have
I mean,
put the little tone in, but they didn't. It's like, oh, you missed a golden opportunity, guys. I mean, you're already making references to Star Wars. Why
yeah.
not?
Oh yeah. Well, maybe that. Well, and honestly, Andrew, I'm going to say that could have been one of those references that took people out of the film. Having
Maybe.
Indiana Jones say, "I have a bad feeling about this," I laughed because I, the fan, knew that he was Han Solo. But that was at least a line that worked within the confines of the film.
Yeah, I suppose.
I mean,
I'm just kind of going on whimsy here. Not really like I'm not truly disappointed. It's more of like
Oh no.
Because again, like I'm with you. I'm like, well, they didn't even like. It's like there it goes, and no one says anything. No one mentions it. No one says like, so we're not alone. No one's like the implications of hey, they were actually aliens. Everyone's like, oh, by the way, Marion's here, and we're gonna go get married now.
Yeah.
The end.
I mean, now I will say that one of the things I liked is I did like very much how when I was first reading things about it online, and that's the other thing too is this was the first Indiana Jones film for either of us that we got to kind of follow. I mean, I know you didn't, but at least you had the opportunity with the internet nowadays to follow the production and to at least get little bits here and there of who's it going to include, what's the MacGuffin, that's what the thing that we never got before. So there was a whole ride to this film that people in our generation just did not have. We never got that experience. So to get that experience, even if you're not a fan of the film, at least you can appreciate that. When it was first announced that the child was going to be in it, and he was playing this character called Mutt Williams, and he was about the same age, and we're all kind of thinking, it's like, wait a minute, it's been about that long, and again, I'm really glad that they did not beat around the bush about whether or not he's. They flat out said, "You're my son. You are mine and Mary." Talk about what happened with the relationship. So I'm glad that you had that closure.
Mm-hmm.
And no, that doesn't mean that he's going to be the next Indiana Jones. It's just a way of making it, guess what, a family film. Because it's about a family. The Last Crusade was more about the relationship between Indiana Jones and his father was the Holy Grail. That was really the backdrop of the relationship.
Yep.
So realistically, that's what I think Skull did well was, yes, you had the Crystal Skulls, yes, you had the contest with Russian, but you actually had a reunion of a family that didn't really know each other for many years, coming together. Why did they have the wedding at the end? To really cure it as a family. I gotta say though, probably one of my favorite lines, and it's completely not macho or anything like that. It's kind of mushy, but it's right out is when Indy and Marion and Mutt are in the back of that truck. He's had been beating up a couple bad guys that jumped in, and he's getting ready to go outside and beat up some more bad guys and take control of the truck. And Marion and Indy are fighting, going back and forth between, what happened and this sort of thing. And Indy's just like, and she's like, oh, you had lots of girlfriends and all that. And he just looks at it and goes, yeah, and they all had the same problem. They weren't you. And I'm like, you know what? Just, what a badass line to say to a woman. It's like, he's getting some at the end of the film. It's like, for me, that was just, I really enjoyed that moment. Especially because realistically, with Indiana Jones in this film he's the same age as my father. It does kind of go back to that idea of, I can kind of see that relationship between my mom and dad. And I think for me, when I really sit down and think about it, that's why I enjoy Temple of Doom. That's why I enjoy Last Crusade. That's why I enjoy Crystal Skull, is because they have that element of, I can relate to somebody in my family with it. Which I didn't have that experience with Raiders, just because there's not really anyone in there that I can pinpoint to my family. And that's really what it is. It's Indiana Jones's great adventure stories that are family friendly for the most, that you can enjoy at any age, that you can enjoy at any time. That's why we keep going back to it.
Yep. I agree. Can you hear me?
You have,
What?
Do you have anything else you want to add?
Um,
But like to say?
I mean, I gotta admit, I'm not a Shia LaBeouf fan. LaBeouf, however you pronounce his last name.
Yeah. I don't personally have a problem with the kid.
I mean, I don't hate him. I just, I don't seek out his movies.
Oh yeah, well exactly. There's actors like that.
Yeah, so, I mean, I wasn't holding it against it. And I did like the fact that because it was the 50s, they included, it's the greasers versus the preps.
Oh yeah, I thought that was pretty cool.
I enjoyed that aspect of it. And this was also the movie where, years had gone by and instead of Indiana Jones stealing artifacts and bringing them to museums, they had the moment where he's trying to take a knife and, Mutt's like, what are you doing? He's like, nothing. I'll put it back.
Yeah.
Because, that was probably a controversy for some of those where it's like, well, is he a grave robber? It's not really archaeology.
Yeah, that's true, and maybe it's also because at that time he was just so focused on finding the skull that he didn't really. It's like, look, well, actually, no. I'm going to tell you right now. Here's a perfectly good explanation for that. Goes back to that in-between stuff. It's like, let's face it. By this point, Indiana Jones has had many adventures and is much wiser than he was before.
Yes.
He finally realized, if I take stuff, bad things are going to happen to me.
Yeah.
I'm not going to take stuff anymore. I'm going to come in here for the one thing I need and go. We're not doing this, get other shiny stuff, because arrows come out of the walls and ceilings collapse on me, and no, none of that.
Walls of bugs, invisible floors, letters that drop away if I step on the wrong one. It's a lot of trouble for little trinkets.
Exactly. So I'm gonna go with that aspect of it.
Well, it's just in real life. Views of that had changed, which is why I think they had that in the movie.
Yeah.
And do you have a favorite part?
Favorite part? I was actually thinking about it. I have a couple favorite parts, and it's really, this is gonna sound cheesy as well, but it's actually because I'm a teacher. The part, they're on the motorcycle chase. Well, they're on the motorcycle and they're chasing the Russians in the cars. And they kind of get into the library. And Indiana, he just looks at all the students. He's like, you can't do all your work in a library. Sometimes you have to get out and do field work, as he's getting on the motorcycle and riding out. I always thought that was great. And then the part where they're in the cemetery and then they have to kind of handle those creepy, native guys or whatever.
Yeah.
Indiana's just running around getting hit. And Indiana kind of pops out of nowhere and hits a couple with a shovel and stuff, takes him out. Mutt looks at him and goes, you're a teacher? And Indiana's just part-time. I always thought that was great. So, that is one of those things where I can kind of claim some aspect of that. He makes teachers look cool. So, I'm going to always appreciate that.
Yep.
What about you? Any favorite parts?
There are some good parts in the movie. I think a neat aspect that they had was when they're, they're fighting and all of a sudden they're being attacked by hordes of ants. That was an exciting moment.
Oh, yeah. That one, I have to say, that one was actually pretty cool.
And I was very amused when, he's in quicksand and they throw him a rope.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, what are you doing?
That was probably, the best closure you could have with that little bit. It's if they ever make another one, I'll go. Like I said, I enjoy Crystal Skull. That's one that I've seen a couple times since it came out. I bought it on DVD. It's, it is. It's an enjoyable film, and I'm going to sit and enjoy it for that reason.
It's watchable.
But even if they don't, I kind of feel like they've got a lot of closure. They've got closure with the love story with Indiana and Marion. They've got closure with the snake bit. So, that's pretty good. Anything else other than the ants and the snake?
I guess it's sort of like, I mean, I'm not, super bugged as so many people are, like, like with the monkey swinging Tarzan scene, like, it's, for one, like, I
Yeah.
understand what they're referencing. It's like, these are guys who grew up watching the serials and old movies, so of course they get a chance to reference Tarzan, so why not?
Yeah.
I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
granted, I do think it's kind of stupid, but I try to let it slide.
Well, for me, I mean, I know a lot of people are like, how does it make sense that, Mutt goes up there and they befriend him? It's like, I never thought that they befriended him. I just thought they were following him. They're like, oh, it's something. Let's follow it.
I mean, it is weird.
That's how it makes sense to me.
It is just kind of weird. And I mean, I did enjoy
They're
like
monkeys. They're weird anyway.
Yeah. And I did enjoy some of the interactions between Mutt and Indy, like especially after he found out he's his son. He's like, "You're going back to college." Like, why do you suddenly care? He's like, "Because." Like, listen.
You're my son now. You weren't my son before.
Yeah. And my son goes to college.
Yep.
And I always thought it was like, like,
Do what?
and I always find it amusing that they're bickering as they're fighting.
Yeah.
But if I had to rank these movies, Raiders would definitely be number 1. Last Crusade is definitely number 2. I always have difficulty picking which is 3 and 4, because I don't hate Crystal Skull like so many other people do.
Yeah.
Like one of my former roommates, like I was watching it in my room one day, and he walks in, and he's like, "You're watching this movie? It's so stupid! It's so stupid! It has aliens! Why do they have aliens?" And I'm like, I don't know. It's not, it's not that bad. It's watchable. It's not the greatest ever. I wouldn't put it on the top, but it's okay.
Yeah.
So.
Well, not sitting there trying to watch a movie you enjoy, and you get somebody else telling you stupid. It's like, look, dude, I understand you don't like the film, but can you go in your room and shut up and let me watch this movie that I enjoy?
I try to give movies a second chance before I make a final judgment.
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
Because you can't, I mean, unless it's, horribly apparent, you usually can't tell a bad movie, or like I wouldn't say, like, you can tell a really bad movie usually during first watch. I say usually, not all the time.
Ankle biters.
Well, like, I could tell the Super Mario Brothers movie was a bad movie. I enjoyed it, but it was still a bad movie.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where it takes multiple watches for certain things to really get the idea of, like, okay, why is this a bad movie? Like, why is it not meeting an expectation I had? With Mario, that was easy, but, like, for Indiana Jones, like, okay, this isn't my favorite Indiana Jones movie. Why? Let me rewatch it and see. Like, why did this not click as oh my god, it was so great, even if it's not the best, because for me it's tough to beat Raiders. But, like, why does this movie not click as much? And it's like I have to watch it a couple times and be like, okay, well, there's some aspects I don't care for, and they're just some parts of it don't flow as well as the other. Like there are some points where it's kind of far between action beats, so you have a lot. And as you said, it's a weaker story than some of the others, so there's that as well.
Oh, yeah.
So.
But also, more than anything, I mean, at least for me, I don't necessarily. I mean, obviously, if I feel like something has a weaker story, I don't necessarily know it right away. It's usually just kind of one of those emotional responses to it. If I have a positive emotional response to a film, that's one I'm going to go back and watch repeatedly.
Yes.
The Good Shepherd would be a movie I would never want to watch again.
Honestly, it's one of those things where I might want to watch it again just to be like, okay, now that I know what not to expect, maybe it's an okay film.
That's a good point. And that is, and actually, Andrew, that's a fair point. Because a good example would be Green Lantern. We've talked about this before, how it wasn't the film we were expecting. It wasn't the film we were built. But instead of sitting there talking about what it wasn't, we should be looking at what it is. And I think Crystal Skull deserves that as well. Don't look at what it's not, look at what it is. And quite honestly, even on that surface, it still has a slightly weaker ending, I feel. But that doesn't mean it's a bad film. It just means it's a little bit weaker than some of the other or some other films we've seen, not just Indiana Jones films. Quite honestly, I feel like Crystal Skull probably has a little bit stronger story than Batman. A little bit.
Maybe. I mean,
it's a tough call because it's really just the ending that's the weakest part of that film with Crystal Skull. Whereas in Batman, as we talked before, there's really not a lot of common threads. You know, maybe it's about the same.
Who knows?
Now that just in different ways. But my point is, yes, it might have a weaker story than other Indiana Jones films, but that has the weakest story out of all films ever.
Yeah.
So, judging on its terms and on its own terms, that's honestly, I've actually found myself popping that one in a little bit more, really just because I find it a little bit more fun. But it also goes back to what kind of tone of film you want. Do you want something a little more darker and scary? Go for Temple of Doom.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want it's just a little bit gritty action? Go for Raiders. Do you want something that's a good father-son, almost kind of a buddy action flick? Go for Last Crusade. Do you want kind of sci-fi fun action flick? Go for Crystal Skull. I mean, that's one of the things about these films is, even though there's 4 Indiana films and they have similar tones.
Similar tones, yes. Uh-huh.
So, I think that's a great testament to George and Stephen and to Harrison is that they've been able to create such great body of work that realistically in each one it's different enough that you can enjoy it for different reasons.
Yep.
What a great response. Yep.
Well, it's like, what kind of really...
He's a man of few words, folks.
And here I am on an audio program.
Yep. Probably didn't really think that one out too much.
Well, if I thought everything out, I wouldn't be doing half the stuff I do.
Yeah, that's very true. Maybe you'd be doing more, we don't know.
Don't know, because I don't actually think about it. Doesn't bother me.
It's too much fun.
So, yeah, that was the... Unless you have anything to add on Indiana Jones, I mean, as far as I know, they're not making any more. I mean, I know...
As far as I know, let's do a quick search just to see if there's any buzz on Indy 5.
I mean, I would presume because, Lucas has retired, so he probably would not have...
Lucas has retired, but that doesn't mean he wouldn't be in as a creative consultant, because even with the Indiana Jones films, he simply would come up with the story. He would do a story treatment, and then they'd get someone else to write it. Steven would direct it. So it really is the three of them. Quite honestly, with the acquisition of Lucasfilm by Disney, possibility. I think right now, though, with them making new Star Wars films, I don't see it as an immediate return, but believe that we could see a new Star Wars movie in 2015, and then a new Indiana Jones movie in 2016. I mean, just because it's not talked about doesn't mean that they're not talking about it. It's just a question of what are they releasing. I mean, they didn't even, as I've said before, last year at this time, George Lucas was going on record of saying there is no 7, 8, 9. We got a different story back in October, so it could change quickly.
Yeah, that's true.
Harrison's getting old.
Yeah.
So the real question is, if they're going to do it, they need to do it. If not, like I've said, that's fine. They did put a good closure on the character and the story and everything with Crystal Skull. I know a lot of people, there is also the IndieCast, if you are so inclined to listen. They do I think a bi-weekly show now, or monthly. They used to do a weekly show, and I'm like, wow, how can you come up with that much Indiana Jones to talk about every week? They still found a way, but they did a lot of, game, that sort of thing. So they did make it interesting until they started talking about action figures and various things that I got bored with. Cast will do that occasionally, and at least with Star Wars, there's enough material for them to talk about all the time. But the guy that runs the site, Ed Dollista, he does a pretty good job with. He's a drama teacher, so go teachers. He had background experience with radio and that sort of thing. So if nothing else, Andrew, I'm going to tell you, at least if you haven't checked out an episode, check out at least one episode just to kind of see the production. I think you'll appreciate it, if nothing for that reason. If you like listening to podcasts, check it out, see what you think of it. They did a lot of coverage of Crystal Skull when that was coming out, and that's something you're not going to get. Is when a podcast can cover a film that we grew up watching as kids, and we didn't have the internet to keep up with it, and so now. If they are continuing a franchise that's, been away for a while, I'm going to tell you, if they do Indy 5, they're not going to make an Indy 5 just for the sake of making another Indiana Jones movie. They're going to say, here's the story we want it to. And that's the other thing, too. That's part of the reason it took them a while, because right after Raiders came out, George was like, okay, I've got this idea with Crystal Skulls. I want to use this in an Indiana Jones film. Like, people say, oh, he came up with this because he's like, no, George had this idea for a long time. He just couldn't, he and Steven and Harry couldn't come to a consensus about what the story should be and how it should work and everything. And as you and I both know, having worked together on independent film projects, it can take a while to come up with an idea that you're both comfortable with and to do it in a way both happy. So,
yep.
They made the film they wanted to make in every case. So, actually, it was funny. George Lucas went on record saying, well, in worst case scenario, I have to make my films. In the best case scenario, I can get Steven Spielberg to make my films. So, I mean, part of the reason that the character's been around for a while is because of that. Two guys that had this great idea that came together. It's two friends, independent. Really all it is. I mean, I do find it amusing that people seem to think this is a franchise just for the sake of being a franchise. Lucas has never operated up until now. We're going to see how this works out. They never operated the same way every other studio did. If there was ever a new Star Wars film or an Indiana Jones film or something with the Lucasfilm name attached to it, it's because they had a very specific story to tell and had a reason for it. Red Tails is a good example. Have yet to see it because I just haven't had the chance to, but, movie about the Pesky Airmen, why would they do that? Because they have a story to tell and they won't tell it,
Yep.
It's independent film. So, if you don't like it, okay. If you do, great. More power to you.
Big budget indie film, but it's still indie film.
Yeah, exactly. It's big budget indie film, but it's still indie film. I mean, but I'm Ching. So, I will enjoy them for the rest of my days, whether other or not.
Yeah, I mean, it is an interesting thing to think about, the fact that Disney now owns it, so there's a lot of possibility, and as you said, there's a lot of time in between Last Crusade and Crystal Skull, so there may be room in there for somebody else to portray Indiana Jones.
Yeah, that would be an interesting thing to see, to see if somebody else can actually come in and take over, because I've got Harrison in Last Crusade, and looks a certain way, and then you got him in Crystal Skull, and he looks older, but to fill that role, I'd say whoever fills a Harrison Ford-related role is going to time it.
I mean, it would be a tough thing regardless, because
there's a new Tom Clancy movie coming out. Something with the Jack Ryan character that Harrison Ford is popular with Turn Prison Danger and Patriot Games and something else. And Chris Pine, the guy who played Captain Kirk from the new Star Trek films, is going to be portraying that character. So you never know. We might see Chris Pine playing Harrison Ford playing Indiana Jones at some point. That'd be kind of interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it's because as you said, Harrison's getting old, so he might not want to do another Indiana Jones movie.
Yeah. That's true.
How old is he now,
Do
anyway?
you have any final thoughts on Indiana Jones?
Whip it good. How about you, sir? Do you have anything you want to tag up for Indiana Jones before we let him sail off on his red line?
I still need to get the hat.
You look good in a fedora.
I do, and it's good. It's a good thing because I really like fedoras too. It's always been my favorite hat. And oddly enough, not because of Indiana Jones, just because of 1930s gangster movies and stuff like that. Because it's a 30. Fedoras are.
Well, on that note, fortune and glory. Freaks out!
Freaks in, freaks out.
Anyway, what I was attempting to say was
Yes.
it's also nice to see a female villain.
Oh yes, very nice to see a female villain. Kate Blanchett did a great job. She had the accent on pat, and what I liked is she looked imposing. She looked threatening, but not in a I'm gonna do something disastrous. But you're like, I don't want to mess with her. She looks like she's gonna mess me up or something.
Yeah, she has that aura.